very much. Now call on Patrick Harvie, a very tight 6 minutes to be followed by Sarah Boyack.
Thank you. Occasionally, Presiding Officer, it seems that there's an inverse relationship between the number of MSPs who turn up in the chamber on a Thursday morning and the standard of calm, rational debate that we're able to achieve. There have been notable exceptions to that on both sides, but too often this morning, each side of this debate has appeared to gain its satisfaction from barking contempt for the other side, rather than in heeding the calls which have been heard from all sides for consensus. If we call for consensus, we really need all to start acting like we mean it. That goes for everybody. The Labour motion today contains one call that I warmly welcome: the idea of a participative, all-party and civic process. It's something that the Greens have been calling for years now. We feel that neither the Calman process nor the national conversation achieved the inclusive ethos that the Constitutional Convention tried to embody, and we could have done even better than that convention by closing off none of the options in taking forward a participative approach at that time. Sadly, it didn't happen. That all-party inclusive civic process, though, could still be helpful in resolving those matters where no mandate yet exists. But the motion, I'm afraid, suggests beginning that process with a conclusion, specifying a single question, despite the evidence we've heard that there is in Civic Scotland a range of views on that matter. We need to be realistic about the aspects which were settled in the election last year and the result of it. The fact of the referendum is one such aspect. That has been settled, and all parties now appear to accept that. The form of it has not been settled yet, and that remains an open question. If we wish to engage with Civic Scotland on that matter, we should do so openly. We should also accept that the timing, limited to the extent of saying the second half of the session, is also settled. And I invite members who've complained about that to speculate about that leaders' debate in the run-up to the election, where Mr Salmond was asked when and said in the second half. If he had said immediately, do we not imagine that the Labour, Liberal Democrat and Conservative leaders would all have thrown their hands up in faux horror and said, no, not in the middle of a recession, you have to focus on jobs, 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 jobs? If Mr Salmond had given a different answer at that point, I think he was right to say, hang off a bit, focus on the immediate economic needs of the country, whatever they may be. We have different views about that, and to say the second half of the session. And I think we should accept that. The government has given its preferred timescale as autumn 2014, and they will consult. The UK government is going to consult too, or is consulting too. And the opportunity surely exists for both sides to give a wee bit of ground, for each to try and reach some consensus on the aspects of the process where that can be achieved. It's not too late. And I think the Scottish Government should accept that there's a legitimate role for the Electoral Commission. If we were to set up a separate body, we'd probably end up recruiting people from the Electoral Commission to staff it, because that's where the expertise is in these matters. And I think the Scottish Government could give ground on that. Similarly, the UK Government could and should give ground on other issues like votes for 16 and 17-year-olds. These steps, each side giving a wee bit of ground, would set a whole new tone, and that's the spirit that we need to go forward on if we're going to resolve the other matters which haven't yet been settled. On the legal basis, we clearly have a choice. We clearly have a choice: the Scottish Government's assertion of an existing legal basis, or a Section 30 order, which can only be brought forward if there are sufficiently few strings attached that it can be acceptable to this Parliament. But that consensus will only be achieved if both sides are willing to give a wee bit of ground first. One question or two: the form of the referendum. We should remain open-minded on that, and it's a clear example of the kind of issues where that participative public and civic process could help to achieve a conclusion with far more authority than we as political parties can achieve between us. If we can get there, if we can get both governments to accept that compromise means giving a bit of way on each side, then we'll be able to move on to the more substantive issues, the competing visions which exist for the future of the country. Whether devolution, Devo Plus, Devo Max or independence, it's what those powers are to be used for that matters most, and that's what we should be engaging the public with. A vision of a country that focuses on sustainability and living within our means versus the destructive pursuit of everlasting growth. A vision of economic justice, closing the gap between rich and poor versus the idea of Scotland as the tax haven of the north. Questions of equality and modern progressive values versus narrow-minded and small-c conservative values. Questions of the currency, how to jointly manage a fiscal union without full political union, or whether another option should be chosen, and questions of the new relationship we would have with the rest of the UK. Can we, for example, prohibit any future Scottish Government from agreeing a way of facilitating the continued existence of Trident or other weapons of mass destruction in Scotland? That kind of debate would be not only inspiring to young Scots, 16 and 17-year-olds who might be voting, but also to the many people involved in the independence movement who came to support that view because of an issue like Trident. These are the questions of competing vision for the future of Scotland, and that's where the debate ought to be. Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer.